Yo, what's going on? Welcome to week 3 of the NFL season. Welcome, NFL fans, to the third edition of the Corner Pub NFL pregame show. Brought to you by Heat Ratio Sports and Corner Pub Sports, a joint venture we're doing. It's been a lot of fun so far. Can't say I've done too well this year so far, but we'll see if that changes this week. You know, teams are starting to feel themselves out. Maybe things start straightening up a little bit. So, as always, the show today is brought to you by Win Daily Sports. So place all your bets with windailysports.com. And when you do it, use the promo code HEAT, which will give you a Sunday discount rate, a Sunday-only discount rate if you use the promo code HEAT at windailysports.com. Of course, you can check me out on my show, Corner Pub Sports, which is Friday nights at 8:15 p.m. on our socials, our Facebook and YouTube page. And of course, always check out Heat Ratio, Win Daily. Check out, there's a bunch of shows on the network at the Heat Ratio network. So it's pretty awesome stuff. We're really, really happy to be doing this joint venture with Tony and the crew at Heat Ratio. All right, so let's get at it. Week 3, we're going to start with the team right here. All right, this is going to be a tough one. You got the Eagles taking on the Saints in New Orleans. That line is 3 in favor of the Saints, and the over-under is 49.5. This game is extremely tough to call as an Eagles fan. Honestly, I'm still sick from Monday Night Football. That was atrocious. I don't know what else to say about it that hasn't already been said. The way that game ended was just pitiful against a team that many people feel isn't all that great. So that was very disheartening. They're taking on a Saints team, 2-0, has scored, I think the third most points in their franchise history through the first 2 games, something like that. They're absolutely on fire right now. So is this a game where the Saints come back down to earth? It seems like Vegas thinks so, because the line was 2.5 earlier in the week. Now it's up to 3. Obviously, people are placing bets on the Saints here. Saints should be getting the 3 for being home anyway. So they kind of look at this as an even matchup. I don't think that Derek Carr is as good as he's showing right now. But he's been on fire from a point last week, last year, I think it was like week 12 on until now. He's like one of the leading passers in the entire NFL. Between rating, touchdown, interception ratio, yards. So, unless he completely rejuvenated himself and this system is where he's going to really, make his bones, then maybe he is for real. But for today, I'm going to say that he comes back down to earth a little bit. That's not to say that the Eagles secondary is all that great or anything like that. I just, at some point you're going to level off, right? Hopefully it's today. I'm hoping it's today. So I'm taking the Eagles. I'm not 100% sure they win this game, but I think it's a close game. Either way, either the Eagles cover or the Eagles win. Call me crazy. I don't know. Like I said, the line was 2.5 earlier in the week. If you're placing a bet for an anytime touchdown, I think it's almost an automatic to put in for Alvin Kamara to score today. And then also he has 65.5 yards over under. I'm going the over on that as well. The Eagles' rush defense has been really bad. So I would go that route if you're going to do the anytime stuff or any of the prop bets. Also, despite what I said, I would definitely start Derek Carr if you have him sitting there on your bench. If you have another quarterback that, maybe, I don't know about Mayfield, but I was going to say somewhere around that level where you're not sure, you're kind of teetering back and forth. Here's the thing. He's been the QB2, averaging 22 points a game in fantasy this year so far. And the Eagles are 12th in points allowed to quarterbacks. So it's a very favorable matchup for Carr. And it's probably going to be a high scoring game. I think you're probably looking at least, in the 30s for both teams. So that over under 49.5 to me seems a little low. I'd probably go over on that. Next game, we have the Giants taking on Cleveland. Cleveland is 6.5 point favorites at home over the Giants. The over under is 38.5 in that game. Cleveland's been kind of a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde so far this year. The first game of the year, they looked really bad against Dallas, and then Last week they kind of redeemed themselves a little bit. Watson's still not playing really great right now. Jerome Ford had a bad week last week, but yet they still pulled it out. I think Jerome Ford is actually a guy that you want to look at this week. I think he's going to be able to have a lot of success against the Giants rush defense. But also for Cleveland, Amari Cooper. You got to start Amari Cooper. The Giants have allowed the 5th most yards per game so far this year. Amari Cooper is going to be the number 1 target there. Sneaky plays Jerry Jeudy. That guy, it seems like he's another one that, right spot, right town, right time, right system. He's rejuvenated his career so far. So I like the two of them today. And then on the Giants side, Devin Singletary had a good week last week. He had 95 yards and a touchdown, but he's facing a very tough Cleveland front. I wouldn't jump on Singletary just yet. I would definitely sit him against the Browns defense. But for the game itself, I'm going to take Cleveland. I think they win by a touchdown. 6.5 does seem like a lot of points for two teams that aren't that great. But I can't see Cleveland losing this game. Green Bay, Tennessee is your next matchup. Tennessee is 3-point home favorites, 37.5 over, under. I like Tennessee here. Despite, Green Bay looked decent last week. But I just think that Tennessee they're just that team that's just, to me, they're not as bad as they look. I think that Will Levis hasn't been all that great. He had a better game last week than he had in week 1. But the guy who's really impressing me so far is Tony Pollard. And, so far this year, he has 144 yards and 1 touchdown. He's making catches, and he's going to take on a Green Bay defense that struggles mightily against the run. So Tony Pollard, to me, is a play here if you have him in your fantasy leagues. Or if you're doing the daily, I think the cost is probably pretty moderate for him. So I think he's a sneaky play there. But I don't know. Call me crazy. I'm taking Tennessee in this one. I think if Green Bay was home, I would definitely go Green Bay here. But I think this is a get-right game for Tennessee. Not that they're going to be getting right much this year. They might be a 500 team, probably a little below that, but that's what I think there. Next game, you have Chicago taking on the Colts in Indy. It's basically a pick 'em. The Colts are favored by 1.5 at home. The over-under is 43.5. This game is really tough to call. Chicago's defense has been sneakily good, and they were good last year. The second half of last year, I think they were one of the top defenses in the league against like points allowed, yards allowed. So this is a tough game for Anthony Richardson. And I'm really high on Richardson this year. I think this is not a favorable matchup for him, despite being at home. With that being said, he'll probably go off. And then the Colts do get a wide receiver weapon back this week, so that will definitely help them. But I like Chicago here, though. I think this is going to be a good game for DJ Moore with Keenan Allen out yet again. I don't know what's up with that guy. He just can never stay healthy. I just don't know what's going on there. But like I said, I like DJ Moore. I'm weary of Richardson this week, again, because Chicago's defense is tough on quarterbacks. So with that, I think Chicago pulls out a close win. So next game, we got Houston, 1.5 road favorites against Minnesota. Sam Darnold, as expected, came back down to earth a little bit. We got Jay here checking in. He says, coffee's getting cold. Let's get the scissors on the table. I got some scissors coming for you. They're coming in a little bit. Doing it a little bit later in the show this time. And by the way, for those who are commenting, I can only see certain comments here. I think it's actually on the either Heat Ratio or Corner Pub page. There's a lot of comments coming through that I see later on that I don't see the comments for. I catch them after we get off the air. So just apologies if you are writing stuff. I apologize that I'm not getting to you. I'm not ignoring you. I promise. I try to get everyone I see on here to get their questions in and so on. Anyway, so Houston, Minnesota, 1.5 road favorites. I like Houston here. We're still waiting for Houston to really have that big breakout offensive game. They haven't had it yet. This could be the game they do it. Minnesota to me is still a suspect team. I'm not a believer. Sorry. However, on the offensive side of the ball for Minnesota, Jalen Naylor, it could be a good sleeper for people with Jordan Addison out. Of course, all the attention is going to be on Justin Jefferson for the Vikings, and Justin Jefferson's also banged up. So now there could be a really sneaky play there for Minnesota. Houston, to me, I think I don't think this game's close. 1.5 to me is pretty low. And again, I think they're looking at Houston going, they haven't woken up yet. What's going on here? I think today's the game that Houston gets going. And I've been riding the Dell train for the last 2 weeks. Maybe Tank Dell breaks out too. We'll see. Next game we have is the Chargers taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers at whatever it's called now, Heinz Field. It used to be, I don't know, it's some mortgage company or something. 2.5 point favorites are the Steelers. The over-under is 35 on the dot. I like the Steelers to win this game. Justin Fields might have a tough game today because the Chargers defense is actually playing pretty well this year so far. So Justin Fields to me scares me. I wouldn't go that route. And even with that, George Pickens could have, I think it's a 50-50 shot with him today to have a good game or not. I'm in on him today because my other choices weren't all that great, but I'm not confident in that. I tell you someone I'm not confident in on the Pittsburgh side also is Najee Harris. The Chargers have allowed the fewest yards to running backs per game so far this season, no touchdowns. So Najee Harris to me is a definite sit. If you have better options, if not, then it is what it is. But yeah, I like the Steelers to take care of the Chargers, especially with Herbert being banged up today. He's not 100%. His ankle's giving him problems. So I think the Steelers defense get after him. All right, next game we have here is Denver taking on Tampa Bay. The Buccaneers at home. Buccaneers have been an early season darling so far this year. Like I said, that line is 6.5, over under 41. Tampa Bay covers. Denver is still finding their way. Bonix is still trying to find his way. Peyton, Sean Payton's still trying to get that system going there in Denver. Tampa Bay seems to be. I'm not saying I'm like the huge believer in Tampa Bay. I think they're overshooting themselves. They're out kicking their coverage a little bit so far. I guess that's the best analogy I can use right now. But they're playing good enough to win these types of games. I think a game against Denver is. They really should be taking care of them by a touchdown easily, I think. With that being said, Baker Mayfield, I mentioned him a little bit ago. Baker Mayfield is having a great start to the season, and Chris Godwin would be definitely a play today. Mike Evans is going to be taking on Patrick Surtain. Surtain's one of the best lockdown corners in the league. So Godwin and Mayfield combination could be very, very deadly today for Tampa Bay. So, yeah, I'm taking Tampa Bay, 6.5 point favorites. Yeah, I'm going Tampa Bay all the way. Carolina finally decided to sit Bryce Young. If I had my soundboard on, I'd be doing the applause thing. The guy was 2-14 or 2-16, I think, actually, in his career starting in the NFL. There's been a ton of questions about him, about his work ethic, about his ability to read defenses. It's about time. So we got the Andy Dalton show. Andy Dalton's been everywhere and anywhere. He's been Johnny Cash. So Andy Dalton gets to start against a Raiders team that is favored by 6 points at home. Over under 40. We talked about it on our show on Friday. I think I actually took the Raiders on Friday's show. The more I thought about it, I think Carolina plays a little bit better today where they can cover the 6. I don't think they win the game. But I think they play a little bit better. I think the offense is going to be a little more smoother than it had been recently. I think just Bryce Young just faced an enormous amount of pressure. I think he was really feeling that pressure. Maybe they can wake him up for his sake. I don't think it will. And not that Andy Dalton's great, but I think he's better than what they had. So I think Carolina gets feels a little bit better about themselves after this game. That they hang in there and they cover against the Oakland Raiders. Next game we have is Miami taking on Seattle. Obviously, the Tua situation is tough. It's tough to watch a guy going through the injuries he's going through, especially if you're a Dolphins fan, because now you feel like your hopes of possibly making a deep run in the playoffs are kind of in limbo right now, with Tua being out for a few weeks. And even when he comes back, what kind of position he's going to be in. I honestly, personally, I don't think he should ever play football again. That's just my opinion. But he's going to. But for right now, he's out, and Skylar Thompson is now your quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. With that being said, the line is 4.5 in Seattle's favor at home. I'm going Seattle. Over under is 41.5. I just don't know how Miami can sustain consistency on offense with Skylar Thompson. We've seen this story before, though. Like, these guys come in, they surprise you. Maybe there's an outer chance of that happening. I don't think it happens against Seattle. Seattle's defense is half decent. I think they struggle today. Miami does. With that being said, I'm weary of Jalen Waddle, but I'm also being forced to start him in one league because my other options are like Keenan Allen, and a couple other players, Coleman from Buffalo. I really don't have much going on there, so I'm going to go with Waddle. But if you have a better option, please go that way, because the fact that Skylar Thompson's your quarterback. Seattle, however, two receivers, despite being a half-decent defense, they are the fifth among the bottom five allowing yards to receivers. So, that's why I'm still weary of Waddle, but that's why I'm okay starting him in my position. But still, like I said, if you have a better option, go that way. Another start for Seattle is Zach Charbonnet. He had 95% of the offensive snaps last week. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. So, I mean, Kenneth Walker's the better running back, but for some reason, it's Charbonnet getting the carry, getting the looks right now. I don't really quite understand that. I don't know if Welker's in doghouse for some reason. He's still getting his carries, but the fact that his backup is getting more snaps than he is, that tells you something. Something's trending. So I would think that Charbonnet is a sneaky start this week. Next game we have is Baltimore -1 against Dallas. Over under 47.5. I'm going Baltimore in this game. They're 0-2. They haven't looked that great. I mean, the Chiefs game, they looked okay, but last week they looked dreadful. Dallas obviously got blown out last week by the Saints. Hoping the Eagles don't do the same today. But I think Baltimore gets themselves going a little bit. Mark Andrews has had a very quiet start to the season. Maybe he kind of gets going a little bit. And Derrick Henry running against that Dallas defense, that's not favorable. But if the Baltimore wants to win this game, they have to run the ball, because I think that the offensive weapons outside for Baltimore are kind of struggling right now. So they're going to have to force a way to get the ball into Derrick Henry's hands and see what happens. Keep Dallas's offense off the field. You do that, they're going to win the game. With that being said, I would sit Ezekiel Elliott for Dallas today. Rico Dowdle, who I wasn't really high on because I wanted to see how his playing time was going to be, he's actually starting to creep up in snaps. And they're facing a tough defense in Baltimore, a tough run defense at least. So I would sit Ezekiel Elliott and watch what happens with Rico Dowdle. I think they're starting to see a turn of events there. He might start being the lead guy there in Dallas. Next game here is Detroit taking on Arizona. Arizona's home. They are underdogs at home by 3 points. Detroit favorite, obviously. Detroit coming off a really tough game last week that people died in the parking lot after the game last week. Literally, 2 people. Yeah. That's what happens in Detroit when they lose, I guess. I like Arizona today. I think Arizona is starting to find their groove here. Marvin Harrison had a huge first quarter last week, being left wide open. Detroit probably has a little bit of a better game plan for him. I don't think you're going to be able to stop him. I think Kyler Murray's finding himself a nice target, a nice toy to play with there. So I like Arizona today at home against Detroit to cover at least the 3 points, but I think they win outright, to be honest with you. And with that game fantasy implications, I would sit Sam Laporta. if you have another option at tight end, that's, obviously on paper you're not going to get another option better than Sam Laporta, but right now he's having major troubles. He only has 3 catches for 29 yards on the season. So Laporta, his rookie season was tremendous. His sophomore slump seems to be incurring here. So I would watch, see what happens with Laporta before I put him back in my lineup. Someone I do like today, though, is Jameson Williams. 20 targets, 10 catches, 200 yards on the season. He had a monster first game of the year. With Laporta struggling, Jameson Williams on the other side of St. Brown there could be a really good option today against the Arizona defense that is suspect. All right, it's the moment that Jay was waiting for, and I'm proud to bring you the Selby Sizzlers. Your Selby Sizzlers are brought to you by WinDailySports.com. Check out WinDailySports.com when you're placing your bets. Use promo code HEAT for your Sunday discount. WinDailySports.com. The first Selby Sizzler. Of course, if you're new to the show, the Selby Sizzlers, 3 games that I kind of go through that I really like that if I was a betting man, I would put money on. The first week I did okay. Got 2 out of 3. Last week, I think I was 1 out of 3. So not so great. One of them was the Eagles. Thanks a lot. The other one I lost by half a point. So, but this week, let's see if things fare better for me and you, hopefully. San Francisco taking on the Rams. The Rams are at home, and they are underdogs by 6.5 points. Over-under's 43.5. This is a little bit of a risk, but for some reason, I like the Rams here. The 49ers defense hasn't looked that great, hasn't looked as great as they had in the past. The 49ers offense is missing Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel and George Kittle. Brandon Ayuk's the only option there. If you're going to tell me that the Rams can't figure out a way to stop Brandon Ayuk today, like everyone's telling you to play Brandon Ayuk, I have to in one league. I have no other option in another league I'm in. I look for him to have a big game, being that he's the number one option. I don't see it. He hasn't had a great start. I think San Francisco's offense struggles today, or struggles. I think that's tonight's game. Yeah, I think they struggle, and I think the Rams again on their side, they're missing Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. Demarcus Robinson's your next option there. They're in a similar situation. However, Kieran Williams has had a pretty good start to the season. If he can run the ball against San Francisco defense, the Rams are going to win this game. Because I expect this to be a low-scoring game too, like maybe like a 21-17 type of matchup. But for some reason, the 6.5 just seems really high to me. I don't like it. I'm taking the Rams on the points. I don't know if they win, but they cover. With that, I'm sitting Matt Stafford today. He's like I just said, he's missing his receivers, and I just think it's going to be a run-heavy game. I think it's going to be a Williams game against San Fran. Call me crazy. I don't know. There's just something weird about this game, but it's a Williams game to me, and I think he has a huge game against the 49ers, despite how good that defense is. Kansas City is home favorites. I'm sorry, the road favorites. 3 points, taking on Atlanta, 46.5. In Atlanta, I'm taking KC all the way. 3 points against an Atlanta team. Yes, they beat the Eagles last week on Monday Night Football. They still didn't look good. The Eagles handed them that game. They looked terrible against Pittsburgh in week 1. I'm not a believer, and I don't think they should be. I think they should be more than 3-point underdogs here. I don't understand that. So I'm going Kansas City, the -3. In that game, though, Kyle Pitts is a sneaky play at tight end because Kansas City's defense is the worst in the league against tight ends. So Kyle Pitts, despite being kind of a letdown his entire career, honestly, I think he's a sneaky play today. Last Selby Sizzler is a Monday Night Football game. Washington against Cincinnati. Cincinnati's 7.5-point favorites. Over/under is 47. I like Washington to cover, not to win. I think the Bengals win at home. But again, the Bengals haven't really gotten going yet, which has been a big disappointment for me. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase owner. T. Higgins is back for Cincinnati, which is going to really help them. But until that offense gets going, I can't buy into a 7.5 point favorite line. To me, they're telling you to root for Washington in that, or bet on Washington in that one. Maybe it's a 7 point game, but the 7.5 is of course where it gets a little sticky there. Selby scissors are served by Hot Choice of tea or coffee. Thanks, Jay. And they're $9.99 at Wawa. So yeah, I'm going Washington there. The fantasy advice I'm going to give you is to sit Terry McLaurin. He's not putting up the numbers right now with Jaden Daniels as quarterback. So not yet, at least. So until he gets going, I would just sit him and just see what happens. Until see if he can form some kind of repertoire with Jaden Daniels. I'm starting Zach Moss for Cincinnati. Moss has been pretty solid this year so far, and against the Washington defense that I think he's going to be able to run against. So that would be the start sits for that game. And then finally, the last game we're going to go through today is Jacksonville, Monday Night Football. Jacksonville is going to Buffalo. Buffalo is 5.5 point favorites at home, 45.5 over under. I'm going to go Jacksonville to cover. Buffalo again, to me, Jacksonville's they're another team that is an anomaly to me. Like they lost last week. They shouldn't have lost that game. They're kind of like the Eagles, honestly. They're kind of up and down. You don't know what team you're going to get every week. Is Travis Etienne going to have a good game this week? Is Trevor Lawrence going to? Trevor Lawrence is someone I would sit this week. Speaking of, Buffalo has a very tough secondary, but Buffalo doesn't seem to be able to put teams away either. Blossom, Jay said. Yeah, we love calling Trevor Lawrence Blossom. Just look at him. I forget the actress's name, but yeah, I just think he has a tough matchup, but against Buffalo's secondary. But anyway, going back to the other side there, Buffalo has a hard time putting teams away. Jacksonville to me is good enough to hang in this game. It's not like the 5.5 is daunting, but I think it's like maybe a field goal game, something like that. So I'm gonna go Jacksonville with the points there, 5.5. That one's not easy to call. That's why it wasn't a Selby Sizzler. But anyway, that's going to wrap up the slate for the Week 3 games. It's, by the way, it's the first time I've been able to rep an Eagles jersey because we're actually playing on a Sunday for the first time this year. Go Birds! I don't know what else to say. They better show up. That's I don't know. This town's going to implode if they get blown out. I can tell you that right now. Also, I want to thank Heat Ratio for hosting this, for powering this show. Corner Pub Sports, check them out Friday nights at 8:15. And also, I'm less than 2 weeks away from my book release. No one likes this, but we do care. The Anonymity of a Philadelphia Sports Fan. It'll be available on Amazon, hardcover and paperback. You can pre-order the Kindle version now if you do a search on Amazon. And I have some more news that I'll share when it becomes official, but it will be sold in some stores. So pretty excited. Hope you go out and support it. Check it out. I think you'll enjoy it as a Philadelphia. Even if you're not a Philadelphia sports fan, I think you're going to enjoy it. You might learn a little bit about us that you didn't know. We're not the complete a-hole bunch that you think we are. All right. Jay said, New York Times bestseller. Well, I hope so. It'd be amazing. Thank you guys so much. We will see you guys next Sunday, and hopefully the Eagles will be 2-1. We'll see. Enjoy the games, guys.